Ever since I started playing them on PS1, turn-based RPGs have been my favorite type of game. While some gamers and even developers in the modern era view this as an outdated mechanic that needs to be left in the past, myself and many others still enjoy the slower, more strategic approach to combat. Some developers are content to stick with the same basic formula, but several others have found ways to reinvent the classic gameplay. These are my top 10 turn-based battle systems. You may notice that there are a lot of PS2 games in this list. That's because the 6th generation was the peak of turn-based combat in my opinion, and developers tried really hard to bring something different to the table. So without further ado, let's get started. MS Saga may not have the most memorable plot or cast of characters, but what it does have is some great mech battles. Every mobile suit you control has the ability to equip multiple guns, shields, and melee weapons. You can use these individually with the attack command, or use several together through the game's boost mechanic. While that is pretty cool on its own, the strategic aspects of the battle system are what really make it stand out. In the upper right hand corner you can see what type of tactic each enemy will use in the upcoming turn. Paying attention to this is critical as it lets you know if you should attack or defend yourself from a deadly boost command. You'll also have to pay attention to what types of weapons enemies are weak against and if they can counterattack your melee strikes. In addition to that, you can charge up endurance points for the next turn, or swap out party members on the fly. Ah yes, the holy grail of many Sega Saturn collectors. This game had an extremely limited print run, so now complete copies sell for over $600. I even saw one listing that was just the 4 game discs go for $400. Yeah, it's insane, but Panzer Dragoon Saga is actually a great game. One thing that makes it so special is its unique combat. They managed to take a series of rail shooters and somehow turn it into a turn-based RPG. You have to move your dragon around to stay out of the red zones, which is the area where monsters will launch a strong attack. Of course, the enemies will also try to move around and get you into one of these zones. You can attack any time that you have at least one gauge filled up, but it's usually wise to wait until the enemy's weak point is directly in front of you. Using the gun will give you a strong attack against one enemy, or you can choose the dragon's homing lasers for multiple targets. There are also berserk attacks, which are this game's version of magic that will require varying amounts of gauges to be filled along with berserk points. There are also several full gauge abilities that will change based on what class you decide to make your dragon. A great battle system, and there's really nothing else like it. The first thing you notice when getting into a fight in this game is just how gorgeous the graphics are for a Game Boy Advance title. Once you're done drooling over the visuals, you realize what a great battle system it has. This classic turn-based system is greatly enhanced by the Djinn that you collect and equip on each party member. Using one of these during combat has several beneficial effects. The first is that it will either damage the enemy or cast buffs on your team. After doing so, that character will sometimes change to a new class with an entirely different set of synergy spells. Another benefit is that it will let you cast a summon, which varies depending on how many Djinn of each element have been used. Golden Sun: The Lost Age took this a step further by adding summons of mixed elements, which give you even more options for putting the hurt on enemies. Another cool feature of combat is that many of the weapons you equip have special moves that will randomly activate when you select the attack command. major innovation of the Shadow Hearts game's combat centers around the Judgment Ring. Every action you take in battle will require you to perform timed button presses on the ring in order to use the command. While the large hit areas are easy to nail, pressing the X button in one of the narrow strike areas will make whatever you're trying to do more effective. This works not only for attacking, but also for healing. There is a risk to this, however, as being late with your button presses will make the command fail. Another great feature is the combo mechanic, which lets you move your party members next to one another so you can link attacks together for additional damage. If you manage to do everything perfectly, you'll get a special attack for even more damage. Plus your main character turns into demons during battle. How cool is that? This underrated Atlas RPG took the typical turn-based mechanics of most RPGs and added some really cool things to make it stand out. The first is that it took the time manipulation theme of the story and also made it an integral part of the combat. By selecting the change command, you can swap turns with any enemy, which will lower your defense, but also allow you to chain more consecutive attacks together. And the more the better, since damage goes up with each successive strike. The other innovation was the battlefield itself. Enemies are placed on a 3x3 grid, and by using various special attacks you can eventually knock them all onto the same square. When multiple monsters are on the same square, an attack against one hurts anything else that stands on that square. Couple this with the change mechanic and you get a fun and unique twist to turn-based combat. The Persona games, well, at least the ones I have played, use something called the press turn system. This turn-based system encourages you to find enemy weaknesses and exploit them. Doing so will not only knock that enemy down, but it will also grant your party member next turn which they can use to hit another enemy with an attack they are weak against. Persona 5 improved upon this mechanic by letting you pass your extra turn to a different character, which is extremely helpful when fighting multiple enemies that all have different weaknesses. When all the shadows are knocked down, you have the option to perform an all-out attack to wreak havoc on the entire enemy party.
Persona! Johanna! That's our queen! Don't resist! Let's wipe them out! There's that boy! They felt that one!
It can be hard to make an enjoyable battle system for an RPG. The team behind Xenogears somehow managed to include 3 different forms of combat in their epic RPG. While the third system was just a basic action-based style in the vein of Virtual On, the 2 turn-based systems in the game were very innovative. Instead of just selecting a generic attack command that will do the same attack every time, these let you chain together attacks of varying strengths. When on foot, each party member could use their AP to hit each enemy multiple times. They could also use something called a death blow, which is basically a kind of flashy finishing move. Your team also pilots giant mechs called Gears. These used a somewhat similar combat system. The main differences were that you had to take 1 to 3 turns to build up attack levels, and you also had to pay attention to how much fuel you had remaining. Later in the game, attack level infinity is unlocked, which not only lets you use some really cool attacks, but also lets you recharge fuel at 10 times the normal rate. very late PS2 release that most people missed out on because they were too busy with their Wii Box 360s. Khemia is a great RPG with a battle system very similar to Final Fantasy X's conditional turn-based combat. They took that fast-paced system and added offensive and defensive bonuses for switching out characters at just the right moment. Another cool feature was that some attacks would actually repeat within the turn list once they were selected. These helped build attack chains and also made it easier to fill a burst gauge that would allow a party member to unleash their ultimate attack.
Everyone, please!
Valkyrie Profile is an RPG series that sadly not enough people have played. While all three games in the series are quite different from one another, they all share things that tie them together. One of them is the unique turn-based combat. Every game uses a 4-character party, and each of these characters gets assigned to a face button. To execute an attack from any of them simply requires you to press the corresponding button. What's great about this is that you can combine all the party members' attacks and do combos on enemies until you're out of AP. As you're attacking the enemy, a gauge fills up to the left of the AP bar, which will let you pull off some devastating special attacks when full. Valkyrie Profile 2 had the best combat in the series in my opinion. This one featured 3D battlefields, and enemies that only move when you do. You'll have to dash through the environment while making sure to stay out of any attack ranges, then take out the enemy leader to instantly end the encounter. Ending battles quickly and juggling the enemies in the air will grant you bonus experience and crystals, which you can use to spend on restoring seal stones, which can give your party an advantage during combat.
Frigid damage.
The passion of the battle envelops me. Finishing strike! The blast hard! You're still alive?
Leave the rest to me.
What are you made of?
Finishing strike! Blinding blaze! Damn it! I shall cut asunder your earthly bonds! Finishing strike! Violent rage! Still it moves?
The Grandia series is a very popular franchise in the RPG community. A huge reason for that is the fantastic combat in these games. It uses an active time system that also factors in where your characters are on the battlefield in relation to the enemies. The best feature of Grandia's combat lies in the fact that you can cancel enemy attacks. When you see a monster charging up something powerful, it's so satisfying to use a special move or critical attack to prevent it. Enemies have the ability to do this to you as well. While all the games in the series have amazingly fun combat, Grandia III perfected the formula. One of the few complaints with the battles in previous entries was that they were too easy. That's been rectified here as the difficulty has been ramped up quite a bit. They also added in some cool new features such as summons and aerial combos.
You're finished.
And that will conclude my top 10 turn-based battle systems. There were several other games I wanted to include like Skies of Arcadia and Bravely Default, but they were beaten out by the 10 here. I'm sure some of you may disagree with my choices, and that's fine. Feel free to leave your top 10s in the comments below, or better yet, make a video response. And that will do it for this one. As always, I want to thank you guys very much for watching, and I will see you next time.